Hello everyone, welcome back to another SwansCast podcast, and this week I'm joined by Ben, so welcome in Ben.
All right, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, coming back. Lee couldn't make it this week, unfortunately. Would have been three of us, but he's in the busy period of his job. I'm not going to share what he does necessarily, but I'm sure people can relate when I say the word month end, part of what he does, and every time that week comes around, I can hardly get a text message from him. I'm only joking. He's very busy, so he's not here tonight. So we got Ben is here though to discuss everything that's going on Swansea related, and I'm sure we'll be maybe three of us next week, or Lee will be back nonetheless. Going forward, then we've got another win to talk about. So I know last week's was a little bit of a negative tone. Actually, speaking about Lee's absence, I actually said to him at the start of the last episode, we haven't won a game this season when he's been on the podcast.
Have we not?
No. You were on the podcast the time before the last one where we spoke about the 4 wins, basically, and we went all the way back to the QPR game, I think. It was a bit of a congested period, wasn't there, with some midweek games when we went on that good run. And we spoke about that run of form as we went into the international break, and we looked ahead to Leicester, which we didn't necessarily expect to win, but maybe you thought better of the Watford game, which didn't materialise. And ultimately, Lee came on after those another 2 losses, and he's not here again this week. And we've won. So I just feel like there's a bit of a trend here, which is maybe unwanted. So maybe nobody wants to see him for the rest of the season.
Yeah, Lee, stay away, pal.
He'll have to take a seat full time. If he's listening to this now, I'm sure he's probably writing a text message, being like, what are you talking about? But yeah, all fun and games. He knows that. Anyway, let's have a look at the football this week. So as I said, a win to talk about. Swansea went up north to Blackburn Rovers, managed to come away with a 1-0 win. I think it's quite an impressive result on paper. They've been like a lot of other teams in the Championship this season, up and down, but I would say one of the stronger looking teams for me. They're a new look Blackburn side to what we would maybe have been used to the last couple of years. They play in a different style of football. I think they've got quite a young team now, and I guess they've got a lot of improvements that they can still make, and maybe we were able to capitalise on some of those shortcomings, whereas on another day we wouldn't have. But ultimately come away with a 1-0 win. So what did you make of that result?
I mean, I really didn't know what to expect going into the game, to be honest, partly because we were on such a weird run of form, 4 wins on the bounce and then 2 losses in a row, so it's all over the place there. But also Blackburn going into the season, they looked like they were about of a fire sale because funding from the owners were getting pulled out from underneath them. They didn't know if the manager was still going to be there. And like you say, this season, they've never really hit their stride, but they haven't looked poor either. You say a 1-0 win, I mean, I'm surprised we had a clean sheet. Is the one thing I will say. I mean, without having watched Blackburn a lot this season, it seemed like they had quite a lot of attacking prowess. And nice to see Liam Cullen get a goal also. Nicely worked goal. I think it has been coming for him, and we'll talk about it a bit later. Seems to have ignited some contract discussions for him, potentially, with 1 year in his deal. I do think it's important we got that win, though, because it would have been all of a sudden 3 losses in a row, and then it's back to, you hear the Duff out brigade, come back out again. So yeah, timely win, particularly because the fixtures we have coming up as well, as I'm sure we'll touch on in a second, is heading into a difficult period now.
Yeah, we'll get to Liam Cullen and his potential new contract a bit later on. But I agree with a lot of what you just said. I was surprised we had a clean sheet. I'm surprised we had a clean sheet from watching the game, to be honest, as well. I don't necessarily think... Well, I think Blackburn will look at it and think, how didn't we score for some periods? It was a weird game. It was a game of different periods of dominance for the different sides, I think. That's why I say when you look at it on paper, 1-0 away from home result up there is definitely a good result for us. Could have gone either way, definitely. They're definitely struggling as a team to recoup the goals that they've lost with Barrington and Diaz leaving in the summer. And I think they've turned into more of a team where the goals come from around the entire squad rather than a main man up top, and maybe we benefited from that in this game with their lack of being clinical, let's say, coming to our advantage on this occasion. You could argue the same for us. Obviously we had 2 disallowed goals that offsides, maybe on another day we'd get it right and go 3-0 up, but that didn't happen. We got the one from Liam Cullen, as you just mentioned, and it wasn't hanging on for all of the remainder of the match, but we were a little bit at the end, I think, and you're never comfortable 1-0 away from home, are you, until the whistle goes.
Yeah, I think by the sounds of it, if you're forced to say what should the result have been, maybe a draw would have been
Yeah.
better. I don't know. I mean, like you say, it was the 2 offside goals and they were tight ones. I haven't actually seen the camera angles, see if it was the correct decision or not. I assume they were, because I haven't really heard anything to suggest otherwise. But yeah, I mean, what I will say is that we have had moments this season where maybe we could have had an extra point or a win instead of a draw, like a QPR. Like, these sort of things do balance themselves out over 46 games normally. So you take the good and the bad.
Yeah, exactly. So we go away from home, and you expect the home team to come at you a bit, and coming away with the results always positive. That's why you say even a draw, even a draw is a positive result going away from home. So you can't argue. They worked hard and they got their rewards for it. But it was definitely a tricky game, and it's a good team. Blackburn, they kind of go into more of a style to what we played last year and what we refer to as the Swansea way, compared to what they would normally be maybe known for. And I guess that's a bit of a weird thing to see. You mentioned their turmoil in the summer. There definitely has been a lot of change around. I think there's a lot of players there that maybe are unrecognisable from a few years back. When I was having the pre-match conversation, they basically play in the match with 3 right backs, one on the wing and one in centre midfield, but ultimately being credited with being their best players as well. So that shows maybe how they've changed to more of a fluid system. And ultimately, I would argue that sort of system we seem to do better against at the moment. And if you have a contrast with the way we played against Watford, who in the first half shut up shop and we struggled, maybe teams who do like to play a bit more, it does suit Michael Duff's style a bit more.
Yeah, I think that's fair, because I think at the first, say, 7 or 8 games, we weren't really seeing that counter-pressing sort of style that was talked about in the summer before Michael Duff came in, where we try and win the ball back aggressively, quickly, as soon as we lose it. But now that we have actually had the change in shape, and it seems like it suits that sort of style a lot more than the original formation did with 3 at the back. I do think now, like you say, if the teams who play similar to the way we did last year actually are the ones that suit us more to play against now, the ones that want to take risks, building from the back, playing through into midfield, even playing out from like goal kick. We've seen a couple of times we've had chances, we've had a couple of goals from those scenarios. Those teams want to take those risks that we took last season and the ones that were more favourable for us to play now. How long that stays that way, I'm not sure, mine, because I do sort of worry that we're going to get found out a bit, as we're very much like playing one way because we finally found something that's worked. We got to, obviously. It took us about 10 games to really click into place and find something that worked. We're not going to suddenly move away from it. But typically, if you go back over the last few years when we've had managers like Steve Cooper in, quite often when we find a system that does work, it works for so long until we get found out. And if we don't have a plan B, then we hit some bad spells of form again. That's why Potter was probably, I feel like I talk about Potter every podcast, but that's probably why he was my favourite manager. You had a plan A, B, C, D, and quite often they all worked in one way or another. That's why I was always confident, even being behind in a game, first half, second half, we could come back into it. Now, when we're playing and something isn't working, you're sort of waiting for the opposition to score still, if you know what I mean. There is that element. Sometimes that's what it was like in the Watford game. Definitely what it was like in the Leicester game, but Leicester, won't be too harsh there because they were a different breed of team, really, weren't they?
Yeah, I think the whole plan ABC has always been a weakness of Swansea during this successful period of the history. Since the Swansea way has been a thing, I would say that's always been a criticism, other than the odd few managers who managed to find a way to deal with that. But I think that's been a consistent theme. People say they want to play the Swansea way. That seems to come part and parcel with it, is the fact that the managers are like, no, we play this way. We don't need another way. We do what we do, and as long as we do it well enough, we're going to be fine. But then when it isn't working, the criticism is always, well, we need to change it up, and we can't. I do think there's no reason why Duff haven't got the potential to be able to do it. It's just whether his tactical sort of prowess is there yet. I feel like the resources... You've got like Kujarevic on the bench, for example. You'd think that offers a different way of playing. If he wanted to use that, maybe he just hasn't got that working yet.
whether he's not fit, I'm not sure. Maybe he hasn't been in the squad for the last.
He picked up
few
a
games.
knock before Watford
Right, okay.
game, and he wasn't in the last two, I think. But I just mean when he's fully fit, you know, you'd imagine there's potential for a different way.
I think he's one that he's clearly not ready to start in yet, Duff. Otherwise, I feel like he would have, especially in that bad run at the start. I do worry that we're maybe a bit restricted in what we can do in terms of tactical versatility now, though, because it was evident that we recruited for Michael Duff's 3-5-2 formation at the start of the season. It didn't work. We're now playing a 4-at-the-back formation with strikers on the wing, and we're stuck playing that way because we can't revert back to a 3-at-the-back formation that we recruited for because no one knew what they were doing. So you do wonder maybe if, say that as, another game like Sheffield Wednesday, where it's evident we're going to win and we're going to win comfortably, whether you switch back to that original formation just to try the half hour, just because I worry now, like if you have a key injury in certain areas of that pitch, we haven't got anyone to come in. Jamie Pattinson, for me, is
borderline there already because Janelli.
Janelli out for the season, but Patterson and number 10, for me, he's the only one that works there. Ollie Cooper, for whatever reason, I know he scored against Plymouth. He just doesn't seem to work the same way Patterson works. That system suits him really well. Now, if any of those attacking front line go, Cullen, Lowe, Yates, Kuharevich clearly isn't like favoured. Would he start Kuharevich or would he switch to a 2-striker formation? But then if you switch to a 2-striker formation, you've got no.
You have to start him still.
It's
tricky.
We got 15 signings or whatever we had, and we got all these players. All of a sudden, we're looking threadbare in certain areas for injuries.
Yeah, we talked about this in the last podcast. Obviously, we just lost to Watford, and we were talking about maybe reasons for that, and some of what you just spoke about, I credited to being partly to blame for what was quite a lacklustre performance, especially in the second half of that game. People, Lee was saying tiredness shouldn't be an excuse this early into the season, and I think that's a fair comment to make. But every game at the moment, I think we are hoping that Yates, Cullen, Patterson, Lowe can be the same front four every game up until January, where we manage to make some sort of signing that can offer competition. So maybe it isn't an unfair argument to say tiredness is setting in some games. They played a lot better at Blackburn after they had a week between games. The Watford game came after a difficult match against Leicester, which I'm sure they would have put a lot into. Ultimately, maybe you could argue they didn't need to do it, but you always want to see the players trying. But then they looked a bit poor against Watford as a result, and there's not much he can do to change that. I think he has tried changing to the 5-at-the-back system on occasions in the second half. Doesn't seem to work when he changes it mid-game.
No.
And then it quite often gets reverted back, whether it's because of injuries that happen on the pitch or lack of options off the bench, I think you're right in what you're saying about Patterson. Cooper, for whatever reason, I thought this was going to be his massive opportunity coming under Michael Duff, but it just hasn't worked out for him yet. He's lucky in a way that he can kind of cover any of the three behind the striker, so he's going to keep getting opportunities, but it's up to him to show that he should be considered for a start. Right now, he just isn't doing that for me. When he comes on, I definitely feel like we look weaker going forward. It's a shame because I think he's got so much potential. I'm not sure how he unlocks that at the moment, But otherwise, go on, sorry.
I was going to say he does just need to keep playing, and like you said, because of our lack of options, he will keep playing. So that's the only upside. But I was probably the chairman of the Ollie Cooper fan club going into the season, but even I've had to admit, like a couple of times, I think he just needs to pick his head up more. I know it's a really simple thing, but quite a lot of the time he tries to beat players. He misses the opportunity to make that good pass, and then he gets quite easily dispossessed. It's quite predictable a lot of the time.
It's quite easy to knock off the ball as well, isn't he? So maybe that's something he can work on. The only other option that maybe could be, I don't know if it works, something that we could try is Liam Walsh in that role behind the striker, but that's again, testing something new. Patterson's working so well there, it's difficult to, unless you're forced into that, maybe we're not going to see it, but he's the only other one I would suggest can go in there, really.
As long as he's fit, give him a chance, because unfortunately I feel like it's a similar situation to Joel. I mean, we may only have them for 10, 15 games a season before they get injured again, so whilst we have him fit, give him a chance, honestly. Because
Touch wood.
what
He's having a good run.
what it does is it rests other people up, though, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like Patterson's he hasn't really looked out on his feet, but I think Duff knows, don't push him too hard. If he's playing 90 minutes each game in that role pressing like he is going to get injured.
He looks out on his feet if he plays more than 70 minutes. He looks done, and there's been one or two where he hasn't been able to come off because of other subs and injuries. I said the same thing about Patino. Patino's being very clearly, to me, managed for his fitness. He's a young player. He's been a bit protected by Duff, and we're getting the best out of him as a result. He's quite vocal from the fan base when he gets subbed off and when he doesn't start. Perhaps midfield is more of a luxury where we have options. You know, Fulton can come in, much to people's dismay, it seems at the moment. But in the midweek, when we got a 3-match week, when we got a midweek fixture, he does rotate Patino out. I've seen there's definitely a trend there with Fulton coming in because there's an option to do that, you know. And we don't really have that option with the other players further up the pitch. And it is because, like you said, we've recruited for the system that we're not using anymore. And as much as that system had 2 strikers and now we're only using 1, you know, Lowe just shifts up front if that was the case. It's the 3 behind that's the problem. There isn't really anyone there to come in. I guess, say there's 2 interested. Say we go into this game now. Liam Cullen picks up a knock. Jamie Patterson picks up a knock. And he doesn't want to change formation. Who comes off the bench? I guess you bring it off Ollie Cooper, Cameron Congreve. Congreve, I don't think, has made an appearance this season.
Well, I was going to say Congreve just now, just because like we saw him have flashes of talent under Russell Martin, so it feels a bit weird that Liam Cullen's playing, you know, the majority of games, every single game, and Congreve hasn't gone on the pitch. To me, anyway, if you were to pick a position for Congreve, it would be where Liam Cullen's playing right now. I think in line with the number 10, just off to the right hand side. So it would be a shame if he doesn't get a chance at some point, I think.
But as you said, Cullen is what, 24, 25? And Congreve's 19, so there is definitely a gap of experience there. I don't recall Congreve ever having a loan either, where he's gone and played a significant amount of football.
No, he had an injury, I think, didn't he? That was a fairly significant one as well. So I don't think he's been on loan. I can double check that, but
maybe that's something that he would benefit from. But then at the same time, who comes in? Obviously, we had that Palmer on the bench as well in the previous game, in the Watford game. But it does...
Is it Parker or Palmer?
Palmer.
I think it's Parker.
I'll correct myself now. I'll go check. Apologies for getting the information wrong. But the point I'm trying to say is the bench seems to be getting filled with players that realistically, Sam Parker, realistically are not going to come off the bench.
Yeah.
So they're there, but maybe one time there will be someone, but the longer it goes on where he doesn't chuck someone on for 5 minutes at the end of the game, you just start questioning whether they're actually ever going to come on. They're just there to fill a seat.
Yeah, I mean, it gets to the point where you wonder, is he going to start pushing the wing backs up on the wing? I mean, we saw Ryan Manning do it a bit last year, no different system, and he did it quite well. Tymon seems a lot better going forward than he does defensively, so worst case, if you add him up where Lowe's playing about now, and had Pedersen back at left back, that for me wouldn't be the end of the world. Ashby and Key, again, both very attacking. They're square pegs in round holes, but like these players, the front 4 you're on, but they can't play as much as they are without something given, especially going into the Christmas period because the games just stack up like crazy.
Yeah, and Choa On has been on the bench for a few games recently as well, so if they did that, there's a bit of cover, I guess, still there. Not that we've seen him either. I don't know what he would offer if he'd be an option on the wing. But we have seen Ashby/Key, one of them, go into the wing in 1 or 2 games as well. So when Key comes back with Ashby, and we'll speak about the individual players from the Blackburn game in a sec, with Ashby, I feel, picking up on his form, maybe that is a genuine option that he can use. I'm sure when Ashby came on a few games ago, he's the one that went onto the wing. I would be tempted to say it should be the other way round.
I haven't seen enough of Ashby to really. He's had good games, he's had bad games to know what his attributes are like. Like some get a couple of games where he's been like, oh, well, he's got brilliant delivery, like cross of the ball. And there's been some games where he's crossing and is flying over the back post. He had some games where the winger is beating him for fun. He's had some games where he's first to every ball. So I actually don't know what his attributes are.
No, but I would argue maybe Key is quite exciting going forward. I would say Ashby stronger in defence. Not necessarily stronger overall, but I think Ashby's stronger in defence than his attacking traits. He can do stuff, but I think he looks more fluid going forward. So if you're going to pick one of them to go on the wing...
Yeah. He's got more of a defensive build, Ashby, by looks of it. Yeah.
Like he likes to look to take a man on as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, Key does pick up the ball, and if he's got space in front of him, he runs with it. I get what you mean. It's the first thought he has, just good as a wing back. That's what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we'll see if it comes to fruition. And Timon has been on the wing, as you mentioned as well, so that wouldn't surprise me either. And that is options. It's just not what you really want.
No.
Ideally, we strengthened in areas, as I said, for the 5 at the back system. So when all injuries are resolved, perhaps now with 2 centre backs, we've got an abundance of personnel available for that position.
We're also
all of a sudden.
We're also limited to switch back to the back 5 because of the centre back injuries that we've had. And Cabango, I'm not sure if he's still properly fit or not.
He was on the bench and came off the bench to play for the last 5 to 10 minutes against Blackburn.
Easing back in then. Norton, I think he's just a case of play him in the cups, but I'm not sure he's trusted in the league just because his age, not that he's a bad player. And after that, would you even be dropping down to Philip Lisser at the minute? Remember him?
Well, Pedersen can come in, can't he?
Left centre back. I keep forgetting who's fit and who isn't.
I'd imagine Wood probably isn't that far away.
Is he January?
Where did he go out? September. 3-month injury.
Yeah.
Surely be December time.
Depends when in September. I can't actually remember what.
I'm sure it was pretty soon after the window closed because we were saying we should have accepted the bid, weren't we? But yeah, I mean, look, there's definitely... It's funny because I guess we went from being short in the areas we were short in and kind of stacking up the defence, and it's now the other way around where we're short up top, if anything.
Yeah.
Midfield on paper is comfortable. You've got Allen and Walsh who make that disputable, really. If they're all there, it's comfortable, isn't it? But there's really 3 of them, Patino, Grimes and Fulton. So I guess we're only 1 injury away there from difficulty. Walsh comes in as the one, but if you're relying on Walsh off the bench every game, you just feel like at some point you can't rely on Walsh off the bench, and who's next? It's a shame.
We'll have a lot more flexibility in the summer, I feel, just because Allen is probably one of our highest earners. Walsh, I'm pretty sure, is a fairly high earner, and I doubt either of them get offered new deals because of their injury records. Then all of a sudden you've got 2 midfield slots for quite a significant wage budget. Our midfield's been pretty set for a while. Like Grimes and Fulton are 2 of the longest serving players, and I'm pretty sure the EFL now. I swear I saw a graphic, they were like top 20 or top 30.
Yeah, they are, yeah.
So that's insane to think of. I realised they were brought in when we were in the Premier League and they weren't really playing. Fulton played like 7 times. I'm not sure Grimes played at all. Maybe 1 game off the bench. But
Fulton had a bit of a run in the team under Bob Bradley.
Yeah, I know. Him for Key. I want to say that was our midfield 3 for a bit.
I do like Fulton. He's getting a bit of stick this season. I'm not sure how fair it is. He had a bit of stick in the first season under Russell Martin, and then turned it around last season, and it seems to have gone back into his court. There's always someone that isn't doing too favourably in the fan base. I'm not saying he set the world on alight this season, but I don't think he's as much of the cause of a lot of the problems as what's being made out.
No, I mean, normally he's quite a consistent player. I think for the most part it's been a standard enough season of him. I think it's the Watford game recently, though. That was, it just nothing went right for him. It was a one-off, I hope. But every time he picked up the ball, he was miscontrolling it, misplacing a pass, get second to tackles. It weren't a good display. But like you say, normally you don't get that from him. Normally,
the link seems to be, though, don't play him and Grimes in the same team, which people seem to be shouting about. But yeah, They've done it successfully under Potter and they've done it successfully under Cooper. Why can't they play together? They can play together. Maybe they weren't playing together well on that particular night, or maybe under Michael Duff they haven't managed to do what's been asked of them together very well yet. And I guess I guess Fulton is being directly compared to the impact that Patino's had when he's been on the pitch, because you lose that by having Fulton, but they do different jobs. I understand the frustration of having Fulton in a home game against Watford where you want Patino to be the more attacking lineup. But if someone's not fit enough to be doing the amount of game time that's required, ultimately you're not going to get the best out of them for the season anyway. And if you look at a team like Leicester, who are heavily rotating their squad and in the position they're in, I'm not saying we could be anywhere near that, but I think rotation's an important part of a successful season in the Championship. So I don't blame Michael Duff for trying to manage that in a way.
Particularly because of the way we're defending as well now. Like, if you remember, go back to, I want to say, just before the QPR game, we were discussing, should they try Grimes and Patino together? And I was like, it won't work for reasons X, Y, Z. My reasons mainly were off the ball, the pair of them I don't think would cover the ground. But what he's done, as I've covered previously on some of the older podcasts, was Lowe and Cullen out wide. One of them are always dropping in to help cover that midfield three. So I think Fulton, he doesn't need to keep coming in because that front four are having to defend a lot more than maybe they normally would in a normal system because Grimes and Patino were there. So if Grimes and Patino were there every single game, there's no point burning out your front four, burning out your midfield, because you're going to start losing games of football then.
You'll end up having more games like the Watford game if he doesn't do that sort of rotation, is what I would say.
Yeah.
Where they looked a bit leggy and, not quite there. And ultimately, if Fulton's the only option, you look at the rest of the players. Cooper needs to start turning up a bit more to allow for more rotations and so on. You could argue that sort of thing. But yeah, I don't think it's as bad. Also with Patino, you're talking about him and covering the ground. I've noticed a significant drop off in how much he offers in the first half to the second half.
Right.
And I guess that's why he gets substituted. But there's definitely more errors and mistakes that creeping into his game from 50 plus minutes.
There's been a couple I've noticed, yeah.
And often then you see him hooked to 60.
Particularly when he was in the defensive third and he'd try and wriggle away and dribble his way out, and he's getting dispossessed maybe a bit more than he was at the start. Maybe people are knowing just to put pressure on him.
Yeah.
One other thing when we're on midfield, I think another player he's probably gutted watching the sidelines, maybe people have forgotten about, it's Abdullahi, because he was playing as a wing back because we didn't have a wing back for the first couple games in August. I think he probably would be having to run out in midfield because that is his natural position, whether that's cam or a bit deeper.
I think he's coming back soon.
Yeah, he would be getting minutes, I think, now, whether it's off the bench or whether it's starting. If Liam Walsh is coming off the bench, is my point.
You're not a massive fan of Liam Walsh, are you?
I like him. It's just like Joe Allen. He's just you can't really rely on him to be there.
No, that's fair. I just get frustrated because I feel like he showed so much of what he could be last season. At the end of last season,
he was our best player, wasn't he?
And I just
games, but it was weird. He just came back and he was probably one of the best players in the division for the last couple.
That's the promise that we were told when he signed. If you could keep him fit, he's a quality player, and that's the first time we really saw it. And I just wish we could see that so much more. Like he's having a good run at the moment. Touch wood. Let's hope that something can change and he doesn't pick up another injury ever. But
after that many injuries, even if you've recovered, probably it's just psychologically you're scared to enter a full sprint. I would be at that point because I think so many of his injuries have been like muscular as well, haven't they? So you're almost just like waiting for something else to happen, or maybe had Achilles as well, which is a bad one. It's unfortunate. It always seems to be like the ones who always have all the injury problems are like the quicker players, the ones who because he is fairly quick. When he's dribbling with the ball, not necessarily like in a standalone race off the ball, but dribbling with the ball because he keeps it so close to his feet. There aren't many players I've seen down here who are quicker running with the ball than him.
He's technically gifted, and he can't show it enough because of his body. Is probably a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
And we've seen it before. I'm not comparing the players, but we've had technically gifted midfielders.
You're about to say Ferry.
We decided, Yeah, and the injuries ruin them, and it's a shame. You could even argue Michu. He got ruined by that ankle injury that he picked up with us.
Yeah, it shouldn't have kicked so many advertising boards. So don't make me.
I would love to know if the's an actual link there, but ultimately,
Yeah, I couldn't have helped though, because I couldn't have helped.
he went to Napoli on that loan, didn't he? And that was it. Like, his career was done after he left us. He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything else.
He went Spanish second division or fourth division or something stupid like that.
He couldn't stay fit. He couldn't stay fit because
run.
whatever this ankle injury was, apparently was causing him so much pain. He just couldn't play football anymore. Like, he couldn't enjoy the football. And
he had the ankle of like an 80-year-old. The doctors told him, didn't they? Which is bizarre.
I know. It's a real shame to see some players who it just doesn't work out because of injuries that are beyond their control, you know.
That's probably
But
why
that's life.
Club since though as well, because he was a £25 million player easily that summer. Arsenal wanted him. I think they were offering for him, weren't they?
Hindsight, you would take it, didn't you? But you can't. You can't argue. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, probably might have been the right call. The Boney one, they probably got right.
Yeah, just shouldn't have bought him back.
They made the mistake there, but at least it cost a lot less than what they gained in the first place. I never thought about it that way, really. But yeah, I think he got malaria when he went to Man City as well, didn't he?
He had all the bad luck in the world. I'm not suggesting otherwise. Then Guardiola coming in, he was never going to be a Guardiola player, was he?
He did all right in their first season. I don't think he necessarily had a bad Man City career.
He was on the bench for City. I want to say it was a Champions League quarter-final, semi-final. He was in and around the squad.
He did score goals for them. Like, not the numbers that some of their other players do, but it's not like he didn't ever score. Like when he went to Stoke and he didn't score, other than against us.
Yeah. I mean, it was a one-striker formation, I believe, right? And they had Aguero, one of the best strikers in the league's history, so, it was always going to be tough for him. Yeah.
Anyway, we got heavily distracted. Let's have a look at some of the specifics about the Blackburn game. Let's Liam Cullen's goal, and he scored the winning goal, the only goal of the match. Very good finish, and I've seen people saying they perhaps thought it was the sort of goal they thought Liam Cullen would show a bit more of, stuff that he used to do in his youth days, because he did actually spend some of his time in his youth career playing on the wing. I want to say more on the left, but obviously striker / can play out wide. He's not just out wide. I know he's a striker out wide, and we say he's a striker out wide first and foremost, but he has had history playing in those positions. I believe when he came on for his debut, actually, might have been Graham Potter, and he came on in a cup match. He came on the wing. But we don't really see that much of him cutting back and using his left foot like that. But I would love to see a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, like you just touched on there, the technique he displayed for the goal, that is something we saw a lot at youth level, especially towards the end of his time in the youth leagues when, it was silly. He was scoring, I think, 20 goals in 2/3 of the season, one season. It was pretty much a goal a game he was on. It was clear he needed that opportunity and he got it. The goals haven't really flown for him in his senior career. I know minutes of goals under Russell Martin was excellent, but then I've always sort of said pretty much the perfect system for him, because as a sort of poacher, which he is, or he was under Russell Martin anyway, that system did produce a lot of chances which he was able to put away. Played regularly this season. I believe that was only his second goal this season, if I'm right in saying that. One against Blackburn, one against Bristol City, I think.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Not that we haven't been a high scoring side this season either, mind, until very recently. But we are playing an inverted system now. Lowe's on the left, cutting in on his right. Cullen's on the right, should be cutting in on his left. Hopefully, we see he's done it once now. Maybe he thinks, realizes I need to be doing more of that, like you say. But then also, I do feel like compared to Jamal, though, he does get on the ball less in games in general. There have been some home games where even though he started, you sort of forget he's there. And that's not a good thing, of course.
And he did that, I thought, actually, and considering the opposition, disappointingly, in the Wales cap that he got. I thought he was quite a passenger in that game. Don't know if you watched much of it. Obviously nice to see someone getting their first cap.
I did watch it, and I was looking.
He wasn't in the game.
I started watching 15 minutes in, and I checked the lineup and it says he's there. And I watched until half time. I was like, he must have got injured in the first 10 minutes or something. I haven't seen him, and I did check, and
Yeah.
you couldn't believe he was on the pitch.
I felt a bit sorry for him because I think he was so excited to get his cap. He looked like a player that was looking for the ball everywhere but getting it nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that was the case of an adjustment of playing in a different system, like in the international setup, you're in a different system. It's the first time he's been there in that sort of fold. Maybe used to what he does in Swansea and bringing that there, but it's not quite working. He went in the right place. They were making opportunities. Like, well, they scored what was it, 4 goals?
4-0, I think it was.
4-0.
That was the thing. I didn't know where he was playing. It was such a weird lineup, obviously, because the opposition we were playing was so poor. I don't think it particularly mattered. The structure itself. I feel like we were always going to win that game because of how low ranked they were. But it just seemed like a game of Kiefer Moore, didn't it? Get it out wide, cross the ball, Kiefer Moore. So Cullen was never really going to be the focal point.
Yeah, I just felt a bit like, oh, mate, you're literally like nowhere. You're not doing anything. But and I think that's kind of the mould that he's become. We saw his technical ability, and he gave us a reminder that he has got that with the goal that he scored against Blackburn. We don't see enough of it, and I think Liam Cullen is quite often associated with someone who works hard, keeps running, and is a bit of a poacher. But that isn't what he was when he was playing youth football.
No, I think at youth football he quite clearly got technically above the level, didn't he? But one thing I think at youth level, obviously physicality wasn't an issue. That was one thing you didn't know how he was going to adjust to it. As senior football, talking about a couple of years, but we are now finally seeing when he receives the ball, his feet, you back him to hold on to for long enough, not to be a target man, obviously, but to hold his own. He was very lightweight when he first started, and he needed to have a good yard of space around him just to keep the ball moving. Technically, it's always been there, but I think he's probably filled out a bit by now. I don't know exactly how he's transformed over the last couple of years, but it appears that way. Maybe he's got more intelligent, just how to hold somebody off. That comes with experience.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, local lad, obviously one of our own, and his contract up in the end of the year. There's been murmurings, we discussed it before the podcast, of other clubs looking at him. I'm not sure how much merit is in there. We'll never know really the merit of behind them. Personally, the situation to me seems like I don't really see why he'd want to go anywhere. I don't believe he does want to go anywhere. But maybe when you come into the last year of your contract, you're like, right, I would like to get a new deal. How am I going to get a new deal? There's not really anything happening at the moment. I think personally his agent's doing a job of drumming up this interest, or at least the articles from these clubs. All right, these clubs need a striker. We just spoke about Blackburn. They don't really have a striker, or an out-and-out one who's getting them the goals at the moment. They were looking in the summer. I don't believe they really replaced what they had last year. Touched on it earlier. Diaz obviously leaving. Easy link, an easy link there.
Yeah.
Playing a similar system to what we were playing maybe last year. Again, Cullen was there, part of that. Easy link. So you want to drum up this interest, say these clubs are linked, so that Swansea turn their head and like, we better tie him down to a deal before we lose him on a cheap or on a free. And apparently there is ongoing talks now that have been started, at least, which were confirmed by Duff in one of the interviews he did last week. I would like to see in the next few weeks a conclusion to that, because I do think he's a good squad player to have. I say squad player, he's obviously in a good run of first team football at the moment. I would just imagine if we recruit for this system we're currently playing now in January and next summer, he's not going to be guaranteed to be starting on the wing week in, week out. And I guess he'd want to be challenging Jerry Yates up top, really, himself as well.
Yeah.
He'd probably want to play first and foremost, don't get me wrong. But I don't think he's necessarily going to be starting every game on the wing, even if Josh Dinelli is fit, So a good squad player to have, though, for sure.
Yeah, I think a good squad player, and he will hopefully be in the years to come as well. As far as the media interest goes, people who are in the recruitment, the transfer recruitment business, whatever you want to call it, I'm referring mainly to people from Market Insight. If you remember them, they used to work for, or they used to advise Swansea for a year. They've publicly said like 95% of articles you see are just agents. It may well be that Blackburn want him, but he may be choice number 8 on their list to strike.
He's on their short list of, right, this guy's out of contract next year. We'll keep him on our tabs. Because as I said to you earlier on, I don't personally think he's done enough in the Championship to command a fee, really. Not maybe a tiny fee, but I don't really think a club's going to pay out for him. But he's definitely a player that a lot of clubs in the Championship would pick up if his contract runs down.
Oh, you'd be an excellent free transfer if you flip the tables a second and say we signed in that equivalent player on a free transfer. You're like, yeah, you can't. There's no real way of losing there. You got somebody who's got Championship experience, performing to a decent enough standard. Only 24, nearly 25 still, so it's a good age as well. Be silly to let him go on a free. I feel like we said something similar with Latabordia as well last season. You know, I realized Latabordia was a bit younger, but
He's not really yet, I think. Is he like 23?
I thought he was 22, maybe 23 now. But yeah, it doesn't. I know you got the fact he's from Tenby. He's come through the academies. You know, that's pulling on the heartstrings a bit there. I know, but you'd be sad to see him go on a free, particularly because he's playing week in, week out. So it would be a bit pointless from that perspective.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Speaking of Joe Latabodia, a couple of weeks ago, I'm in a chat with a bunch of other podcasts across the Championship, and quite a lot of Coventry fans have been crediting him with being like their player of the season so far.
Really? They've had a pretty poor season, man. That's still nice to hear.
Yeah, but I mean, poor season, and he's a defender, so you'd think ultimately, you know, they're conceding goals and not winning games. But this was a few weeks ago. I don't know whether it's changed recently. I don't know how much he's been in the team of late, but he did start in the back three. He's playing centre back for them, which is not something he really did consistently for us. And yeah, they're quite happy with how he's been performing. So
well, it's nice for him. He's finally had a good run in his actual position, not wing back. He's never a wing back, was he? I felt bad for him. He was always a scapegoat when we did bad. But then we run that badly out of position.
We piled on him sometimes, but we always did it with the caveat of we're not criticising him really because he's out of position and doing his best. But you've got to acknowledge that that's a weakness of what we were doing on the pitch, and the club decided not to fix that problem several times.
Yeah, it was crazy
when they had the opportunity to do that, you know. So it's just really, yeah, it was. I mean, Harry Darlin ended up being a right back at some points last season, so I wouldn't say he's a right back, but he's done a decent job there sometimes.
He's looked good at right back. He hasn't looked out of place. Been a bit unorthodox. They'd be like, it gives me Dan Burn vibes, if you understand what I mean. That sort of build.
Yeah, I don't understand how Dan Burn's a left back.
Yeah,
don't get that at all.
He's got a rare like athletic build in that he doesn't look like he should be as quick and as mobile as he is, but he just is for some reason. It's not like Pedersen. Like Pedersen's 6'4". He is slow and not as agile. He does a good job, but he has weaknesses. Burn doesn't seem to have those weaknesses for whatever reason.
Yeah, nuts. Surprised Brighton sell a lot of players, don't they? But still manage to find new gems all the time. Fair play to them. Yeah, okay, so Liam Cullen, I think almost an upwards for him. I would like to see him scoring a few more goals, if anything. I would like to see him backing himself in the sort of position he got himself into to score this goal. Now he's had that, maybe see it a bit more. Not that many of our players at the moment having a pop from outside the box, and it's nice to see one of our forwards doing it to some success. Josh Ginnelly obviously showed us he could. He's not really around that much. I was actually told by... I think it was the Sunderland preview that we had recently, that it might be the Blackburn one. It was one of the two, but Josh Ginnelly played in the game against whichever team it was for one of the teams he was with back in the day.
Probably.
I don't think it was Preston. It was when he was on loan somewhere in a lower league team.
Right.
And he basically scored the equivalent goal of what he scored against Northampton for us. Because he was telling me the story about a cup match, he was playing against this lower league team. Josh Ginnelly was there, and he just banged in a goal from like 30 yards. So they were interested to see if he was going to play, just because they saw that before. I was like, unfortunately, he's not going to be. But funnily enough, he did the exact same thing for us earlier in the season when he banged in a goal against Northampton from about the same range. So
it was a gutting injury still, because it was just as we were transitioning to a system that was going to suit him perfectly.
Yeah. I'm hoping that he can recover from it and offer the same. It's difficult one to recover from sometimes.
I mean, at least he'll be back and then have the summer to build his fitness up. Is the one good thing.
You just never know the long-term effect of those sort of injuries, what they have on
you don't.
your agility and mobility and all that sort of stuff.
Especially for the player he is as well, like you say, because he is speed and agility.
It's just like Jordan Morris in there when he picked up that injury and he was second
Morris.
in the other leg to what he's done it before. And you think, can they get back to that level, you know? But it was nice to see him in the World Cup, to be fair.
Well, done with Jordan Morris, man. I spent 3 days like compiling footage of just to analyze his game, and I made I swear it was like a 50 tweet long Twitter thread of like his footage from the MLS, and then got all his engagement and all the Seattle Sounders fans were on it, and that's all brilliant. And then what was it, 3 games in ACL, I was like, oh.
We made a good connection with the Seattle Sports Union over him, and it's a shame because I think he would have had a good loan spell and ultimately probably would have stayed. He seemed like an exciting player.
If we went up, he would have stayed. I don't think we could have afforded him on a permanent.
I don't know how much they would have wanted for him. He came because he wanted to come
like 7-8 mil, surely.
Do you reckon?
I think so. I mean, US international. What was he at the time? 27.
I don't know what his contract situation was like, but you know, the reason he came on loan in the first place was to stay over here. You know, it was his last opportunity to make a move to Europe, basically.
It
needed to work for him.
Yeah.
We could have gone up that year though, couldn't we? In due respect, to be fair.
We were second at the time. It looked like we were going up. It did, but
we needed a striker, didn't we? Essentially, and I guess that he could have been that man. So,
if that's maybe he looked good when he played. Like the very few minutes he played, he looked good. That's what's so annoying about it.
Yeah, I think he came on in a really poor game. Was it against Huddersfield? And we were like 4-1 down at half time or 4-0 down at half time. And he came on at half time to try and change the game, or maybe it was 3-0. So it was a bad game. That's why he came on at half time. And I think it just, you saw that injury and you were like, right, I'm turning off now. I'm done for the day. I'm done with football.
Oh, so sad.
It was sad. Anyway, don't know how we got into Jordan Morris.
Reminiscing a lot today, Luke, and we were.
We've only got one game to talk about for me, so we're nearly there. We're nearly done. It's a late one, so we're recording at this at the moment it's like 20:10. A late one after I've come straight home from work, so unfortunately there was less of a planned episode, but it's all good, all the same. Back to the game though. Jamal Lowe's 2 disallowed goals. Now, not necessarily going to talk about the detail of the disallowed goals. I think they were marginally correct. The second one was the one that was more disputed. I don't think you can argue really that it was wrong. You could say debatable, but I don't think it's not an obvious mistake. Regardless, it was good to see him put the ball in the goal twice. He hasn't scored the most amount of goals from open play since he's come back. He's quite a few of them been penalties, and that's not a problem. But I think I said maybe after the Watford defeat, I hadn't seen awful lot personally from him. A lot of people have been happy with him since he's come back, and I've been the same. But I wanted to see a bit more from open play, and I guess 2 disallowed goals is an attempt to kind of sort that out.
Yeah, I mean, I was as gutted for him as he probably was that both of them were disallowed purely because on another day, if they were that tight, they could easily have just had the flag kept down, benefit of the doubt for the striker. But yeah, I think one thing with Lowe has always been, is he a clinical striker? I know he had that hot spell at one point under Steve Cooper, but last time he was here, he probably would have said no. But coming back so far, he's buried what chances he's had because he hasn't had a ton of chances every single game. So it's nice to see. I think surely it will give him confidence regardless of whether they were allowed or not. He knows that he's getting through. He's putting the ball at the back of the net.
Yeah, definitely. And whatever they were doing to make those opportunities definitely needs to be more the same. I mean, he's been in the Premier League, so you'd like to think he should be a better player since we had him last time, in theory. I know he probably didn't play the most amount of football while he was there, but you surely got to be a better player for being in the team while they're in the Premier League and with those players. Like, they stayed up, So it's not like they were relegation fodder when they went up. So maybe we're seeing some of the rewards of that compared to when he was here last time. A lot of different system as well to what he was used to. He left under Russell Martin by all accounts because he wasn't going to suit the style.
Yeah.
And I would say, are we gonna say that Michael Duff's in between Cooper and Martin style? I don't really know where we would place him.
And the minute
But
he is, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely working for him at the moment. Maybe more so playing out wide than accompanying Jerry Yates up top as well.
Yeah, 'cause that's one thing people forget. He wasn't really a striker until we made him one. At Wigan, he was playing on the wing, unless I'm mistaken. He may have played up front.
That's right.
He was on the wing.
Yeah, on the wing, I believe, yeah.
Yeah.
We kind of utilised him forward.
We have a habit for just like making wingers strikers and strikers wingers.
Yeah, Steve Cooper liked to, Andre Ayew winger, striker.
Yeah.
Jamal Lowe winger, now you're a striker now.
I'll reminisce some more. Jordan Ayew and Nathan Dyer was a front two under Carvajal at one point.
Yeah. There's probably been a few of them, to be fair, over the years. Okay. Blackburn obviously didn't exactly roll over in this game. They started the game very well. I think we were... Some people, I heard the words weathered the storm for the first 15 minutes, and obviously we went and took control of the first half afterwards. But they definitely came back into it towards the end. Now, there's a criticism of Swansea under Michael Duff that we have sometimes if we 1-0 up and we don't get that second, the longer the game goes on, we just start sitting back and soaking it up and defending. We managed to do it this time. Do you have anything to say about that? Do you think there's more to that? Or
I'm not sure. I mean, I think it depends on the opponent. I'm trying to think. Like Sheffield Wednesday, we definitely didn't sit back. Maybe that was an outlier of a game because of the opponent were.
But when we were 1-0 up though, they could have scored, couldn't they? And then we got the second one, perhaps against the run of play.
Yeah, they hit the bar. We were on the back foot, and then pretty much we went straight up the other end, made it 2-0, and then 2 minutes after that, it was 3-0. That was a weird
the
game.
2-0 is what makes the difference, I think.
Yeah, and I think you are right in what you're saying. QPR, we went 1-0 up in the first 5-10 minutes. Definitely sat back, did nothing else for the rest of the game. Preston, I want to say we played some decent stuff after going 1-0 up, let them back into the game. I'm hoping now that we're not on a losing streak, maybe that mentality shifted a bit. There's almost a case of, okay, we haven't won a game yet, let's just dig in and hold on. We won 5 of our last 7 now, I believe. So I don't maybe think we're in that mindset of, right, just hold on to 1-0 lead, see it out. Particularly not at home, but then it seems to be at home we're not actually going ahead a lot of the time in the first place.
Depends who you're playing against, isn't it? The Watford game was different to the Leicester game, for example, but 2 losses nonetheless. And we got Sunderland to look forward to this weekend. We'll touch on that next briefly. But I think regardless of it being intentional or not, I think it's important to note this was an away game. You'd expect the home team, if they're 1-0 down, to... The longer that it's 1-0, they are down, going towards the end of the game, the home fans are going to expect something, aren't they? To like, are you going to have a go with this? You're going to throw everything at it? You're at home. Can't just accept a 1-0 defeat. I guess people will argue after the Watford game on that point, but that's what you would expect to see. So yeah, and we held on. We did hold on. That's the bottom line, which we didn't do against QPR. So you could argue there's a bit of improvement. And it's not like we didn't have any chances in the second half. Patterson probably should have scored to make it 2-0. And Ashby went close as well. To be fair, I said about Josh Key taking on people more often than Ashby, but he did hit the ball past an opponent and run onto it very well in this game and had a shot from outside the box that fizzled just past the post. So fair play to him because he nearly got on a score sheet too.
He's got some pace about him, Ashby. He does. I think he's one of those ones maybe he's a bit deceivingly quick. One player that maybe because of his build, he doesn't look as quick as he actually is. Yeah,
once he gets going, definitely can make an impact there. So that's I think that's partly why we're away from home. You're only 1-0 up, so it is a small lead. 1 goal is a draw, isn't it? One goal is a point, so you'd expect teams to come at you. But we also already spoke about this earlier in terms of the depth of the squad. tiredness of the players. I think the later you go into any match at the moment, you see that more.
Yeah.
And it's no surprise to me if in matches in general we fizzle out a little bit at the moment. Because when was the last time any of the front floor four changed, for example, to start a game?
Since we switched to that back four formation, really, you know?
Yeah. And then people, Grimes plays 90 minutes every game, and people want Patino to be there, but Fulton generally comes in. And again, the back four, there's been changes at wing back, but in terms of there's not that much rotation on the whole. Injuries partly a result, and the formation partly a result. But if you only 1-0 up going into the last 10, 20 minutes, I feel like that's something we're going to continue to see to some capacity, unfortunately, naturally. Yeah. But I also think that's why the way that Duff is playing with the high press to try and get their mistakes and get early goals is vitally important, because he wants to get that early lead. And if you can get that second goal at a comfortable time in the match, it's easier to manage the rest of the game.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. And on that point, let's move forward to Sunderland, because I said a similar thing in the pre-match show. I can't remember if it was in our video or their video on their channel. So the What the Fuck podcast, play on words for the guy's surname, Graham, who I was speaking to. So go check that out. I'm not swearing, I swear. It's one of them tongue twister ones, very easy to slip up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was saying, when Sunderland come down, they are a team that also like to play football, but that could suit us, really. It could suit us in a way. It would give us more space to exploit, but also allow us to press them if they're coming at us and playing out, where we could get an opportunity. It might go the other way, and they're a good team, so they could easily do some damage themselves. And they've got some quality players. Jack Clark, definitely one to look out for. But if we can get an early goal, like we did against Norwich, for example, I feel like a 1-0 early lead at home is something that will be very comfortable for us, because they have to come at us more, and that should suit the system that we are playing even more so for us to get the second and third.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say I expect it to be similar to the Bristol City game, not in that we're going to get absolutely battered, but if you remember how end-to-end that game was, I feel like this is going to be a really open football match, and it could well be who scores first, who dictates who ends up winning it, actually. I'm not sure this will be a game where, if we score, do you see us chucking away the lead? If they score, do you see them chucking away the lead? It could just be a confidence thing, honestly. Whoever takes the lead goes on, pushes on, gets that second. Get to see Joby Bellingham this time around rather than Jude, don't we? I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying Jude Bellingham his debut against us, right? Remember when he was 16, he came off the bench at the Liberty, or am I making that up?
I'm not sure, but I'll have a look.
I feel like it was either his debut or it was very early on.
I compared him to Zidane the other day in one of the videos we did. I feel like at the moment he is kind of Zidane reincarnated this season he's on for Real Madrid.
The reason I feel bad for him now is that he's English. He's probably the best player in the world over the last couple of months. Now he's going to have all the hype that comes with it. And then there's going to be some massive fall from grace at some point. It's always, the English media are always the same. They build them up, and then at some point they tear them down.
You mean like the next Jack Wilshere or something?
I think I'm selling Bellingham a bit short by calling him Jack Wilshere already, if I'm honest.
No, I just mean about the hype that they made about him.
Yeah. I guess the difference with Bellingham is he's already there and he's doing it now, whereas Wilshere, apart from the odd game in the Champions League, he never really...
Wilshere never got to that level, of course. I know that. I just mean in terms of like they hype up the next big thing. Yeah. Maybe, and again, take the ability of the player out of it, but Dele Alli got hyped up massively and fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
But there we go. He made his Football League debut appearance 19 days later than... I'm just reading off Wikipedia. But basically, he made his Football League debut against Swansea as a second half substitute in a 3-0 away defeat.
There we are. So when I've been telling that fact to people, I haven't been lying. Nice one.
And who was the manager when that was? Was it Steve Cooper?
I think Steve Cooper, yeah.
That is crazy, because that isn't that long ago.
No, because I remember him coming on and just thinking, who is this?
He's only 20 years old.
He was 16. It was like...
He's still only 20 years old. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
He feels like he's been around for ages, and because obviously he went from Birmingham. He made his debut, and in that summer, he went to Dortmund.
Yeah, he was there for a year at Birmingham, wasn't he? And then
In the first team.
Yeah, in the first team. Sorry for you.
That's nuts, though, isn't it? Because I'm looking now. He was at Birmingham's youth team, 2010, 2019. So obviously he's made his debut at what, 16.
Yeah, 16. I think it was.
That must be the youngest that you can play then.
No, you can play when you're 15. I'm pretty sure. Can you? I thought you could.
Well, he became Birmingham City's youngest ever first team player.
Yeah, I think.
I would imagine it's got to be 16. It might be something to do with school.
Possibly.
If you're still in school.
Yeah, so I think is 16 the age in which you can leave, right?
There's like, you know, at the end of the day, being a professional football player is a job, and there's young worker laws and stuff that I guess you'd still have to follow if you're in a football environment as you would in any other job.
It could just be it's a lot more difficult.
Yeah, it's probably not worth the effort.
Education every day. Yeah,
and you don't want to expose maybe a kid at that age as well to that. But yeah, 1 year in Birmingham, go to Dortmund, and now he's 20 years old, smashing La Liga for Real Madrid. He scored 12 goals in his 3 years at Dortmund, 3 years at Dortmund.
But yeah, he had like 7 or 8 last year, I want to say, and he's already scored 10.
And he scored 10 in 10 appearances for Real Madrid. That's why I was comparing him to Zidane, because it's just nuts, and he's playing in midfield, isn't he? So, or like Cam.
Well, how far off is he top goal scorer in the league?
He probably is.
Yeah.
La Liga. We've gone off on another tangent.
Oh, yes. This is less of a Swansea podcast and more just like life.
No, that's all good. It's all football. I mean, Swansea's quite. It's one topic, isn't it? So it's nice to broaden horizons sometimes. But yeah, he's top goal scorer by 3 goals.
Oh, there we are.
Anton Griezmann second, so he's still knocking about there. I mean, they don't have Ronaldo or Messi anymore.
Nah, La Liga will never be the same now, will it? Unfortunately. But
Lewandowski's only on 5 for comparison.
He is like 34 now, though, right?
Alvaro Morata on 6. To be fair, Atletico Madrid have got Griezmann on 7 and Morata on 6.
There we are. Anyway, Sunderland.
I can pull it back round to Swansea, because I think we were linked to David Villa once.
Oh God, I feel we've ticked every box now for the reminiscent stories.
Memory lane, yeah.
That would have been silly. That would have been absolutely silly. David Villa.
Yeah, and Andre Schürrle was another one, wasn't
he? He was signing for us, wasn't he? But I think
someone got injured.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they pulled the plug and we got relegated.
Oh God.
Okay, yeah, Sunderland. So what do you expect going into the game then? Do you think we can carry on? I think personally Michael Duff needs to get a home win under his belt here.
If I were to guess, I'd say score draw. But it could also just be a game of, like I said, somebody takes a lead and just runs away with it. I don't know what to... There's been quite a few games. I think it's mainly us rather than the opposition. I don't know what to expect anymore. I feel like under Russell Martin, I sort of had an idea of what a game was going to be like, and sometimes it turned out to be the case. Nowadays, I think because we're still figuring out who we are as well. Like, I know I can describe our shape, but when someone asks, right, how do you look to break teams down? It's more about reacting to the opposition rather than it is us doing anything and then imposing ourselves on the opposition. So it's more a case of what is Sunderland going to be like on the day when they turn up, and then that will probably dictate how the game goes.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think I'd like to see Michael Duff getting a home win. I think he needs it after the last 2 home games, even to keep the momentum of the fans getting back on side and all the rest of it, which a lot of them are now, to be fair. They do come out when we get a loss in, the ones that are like the boo boys.
There's boos regularly. It didn't used to be the case. Russell Martin had us just like staying quiet at the final whistle for quite a lot of his spell, apart from that really bad run in the middle. But like,
I've got a lot to say on that. We spoke a lot about it last week. I had a bit of a rant about the situation around us losing a game at the moment.
then booing.
Because I ultimately disregard the Leicester result if we're talking about our form.
Yeah.
I just think, just look at Leicester in the league and take them out. Every team is falling to them. Every single team.
Yeah.
They've literally lost one game in 14.
Yeah, I don't
Something
think we booed
ridiculous.
Leicester. I don't think they was
Yeah.
booing
So
Leicester.
what I'm trying to say is, if you take Leicester away,
Mm.
that's one loss in 6 games.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah,
and 5 wins. So why was this so negative after Watford? And I know it was a poor result, and I know it was a poor performance, but it's still 1 loss in 6 games and 5 wins.
it's so counterproductive when people boo. I hate it. Maybe I'm soft. I don't know, but
No, I don't think you are. I agree. I think it's just ridiculous. I don't think it ever used to be this bad where people can have an opinion. I understand that, and they can voice their frustrations, but also be realistic and be fair. And 14 games into a season, when we're sitting like 13th, booing a loss at home to Watford, that is not fair.
No. And I'm not sure people realise how much of an impact it has as well. Like, maybe not so much now for the way we're playing, but when we were playing the style of football under Russell Martin and it was 3 wins and 22 or whatever we had, they were so scared to just, take risks on the ball because the crowd were piling on them every single time they lost the ball and made a mistake. It actually really diminishes their ability to impose themselves on the game.
Do you know the biggest point to back up what you were saying is how Steve Cooper's fortunes changed under lockdown as soon as there was no fans in the stadium.
Yeah, that's fair.
And we ultimately managed to get into the playoffs in his first season on the back of that. And then the second season was quite successful as well. And I know the fans came back, but there was all of a sudden no pressure.
Well, only right at the end we came back, didn't we? We came back for the playoffs and that was it.
Yeah. And the playoffs didn't go very well.
Yeah, I mean Brentford was ridiculous, but I that's one thing I don't want to reminisce about is that playoff final. I really don't.
I just think it shows how important or how important the fans are and how much impact they can have when they don't realise. And I know firsthand because I've got people who know players. Like my uncle I spoke about before knows Norton, and I've heard it does have an impact. It does. They hear it. They might not acknowledge it, but they hear it. And when you're not in a good run of form, that doubt creeps into your decision making. And that's when the issues can arise then, because they want to just play the safe pass because they're scared of making a mistake. But you can't necessarily then win games because you're not taking that risk,
Yeah.
And I think Michael Duff's game plan, where it differs from Russell Martin's especially, is he wants some players who wouldn't take as many risks anyway last year to take a few more. Mac Grimes, for example, trying to create opportunities. So it's important that we are encouraging that even when it doesn't necessarily work. I understand the run of form that led up to Cardiff. If that sort of run of form happens again, it's maybe is a bit more fair. But one loss to Watford at home, and I was arguing, Watford have been in the Premier League more recently than us. So even though they've got their own issues that put them in a position where they're below us in the league, if we are entitled to just win that game and to just be doing better in the league and to be higher up, what are their fans thinking?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of entitlement ever since we got promoted, if we're being honest. I think we are bigger than what we are. And I know it's quite a basic metric to rank it on, because I know there's some smaller clubs than us on paper in the Prem with Brentford and Bournemouth in stadium capacity. But just run through the attendance, run through the stadium sizes in the Championship. We're I want to say 19th, 18th, 19th. We're really low down. The only reason that we are considered a big club is because of the infrastructure we have in place because we've been in the Premier League. Yeah. Just because we've been there for 7 years, that doesn't give us the right to be where we are. We look how easy it was for Derby and Reading to slip into League One.
Sunderland, Portsmouth.
Really soon after being in the Premier League, or more recently for Reading and Derby, they've been in playoff battles. Reading were in a playoff final against Derby, were in a playoff final, and they lost to Villa, and then they had 2 relegation battles before eventually slipping through the trapdoor. Reading were, I want to say, they looked nailed on the playoffs for an entire season because they had 7 wins and a draw in their first 8 games one year.
And we knocked
them in a relegation battle the year after. Barnsley, I know Barnsley aren't a big club, we had them in the playoffs. They looked brilliant under Ismail. Straight down the next year. We've seen from the way under Russell Martin last season and the way we started this season, it can very quickly change from, can we make top six, so let's just not get relegated. So I'm seeing like booing at home because of one, like you say, one loss to Watford. It winds me up. It does wind me up.
Yeah, it winds me up as well, and you see it all over social media too. And it's so counterproductive. And when you're going to criticize, be constructive about it. Don't just like. There's a lot of stick for Paul Watson, and it seems to only come out when we lose. There's certain accounts that are quite vocal about the same stuff, and it makes absolutely no sense. I've never read so much rubbish. Like, it really, really, like, you can criticize the board and stuff, some of the stuff they do, but not everything they've done is bad. We could be in a far worse position. I'm not arguing. I'm not trying to stick up for them or argue their case there, but I think a lot of fans who maybe started supporting during what is still a successful period of Swansea City's history could have a look at the overall history and understand that as much as being a mid-table championship team is not the most successful period you might have known in your Swansea City history, it is still above average for the club.
Not only that, but you don't even need to look at our history. All we have to do is look at just the landscape of football in general. The American owners, they're nobody's cup of tea. But nowadays, they're very much just sort of ghosts, and they let other people run it for us. We're still being run sustainably, which is huge. Like, I think
that's what I mean when I say credit them for certain things. The sustainability part of it, you might not agree with the lack of investment, but I'll take this over any of the points deductions and administrations and double relegations that some of the bad management can offer.
And staff not getting paid, which is quite a common one at the minute. And then that's when it gets more serious. It goes beyond, where we win or lose on a Saturday, and that gets to just like people can't pay their mortgages. I know I'm getting a bit deep now, but honestly,
that's the reality, though, isn't it?
Some people need to look deeper than just the game of football that they're seeing on a Saturday, I think, that's all.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I just think overreaction sometimes in our fan base is a growing trend. People spoke about the atmosphere has been quite poor for a while now at the stadium. It's probably a fair comment. The crowds are lower in general. There is a vocal corner. Yeah, an unconventional way of trying to drum up the crowd. But the fact that they need to try and do that, then...
I found it quite funny, mainly because I don't think the away end had any idea what was going on, and they couldn't actually see what was going on. All they would have heard was the sound out of nowhere. Yeah. I was just picturing being in that Watford away end. That would have been funny.
Like, I appreciate the efforts. It's probably not the best way to do it, but ultimately, why do they... They've obviously realised they feel the need to do something.
Yeah.
What they do before, they put, clappers on the seats and everyone went nuts.
That was playoffs, I think, wasn't it? But, yeah, that was a weird one. There was only 3,000 people there, wasn't it?
Yeah, but, Leicester done that, didn't they? But successfully, and the fans loved it. I think when they were in their title-winning season, that was a big thing they had.
They were going to love anything when you're winning a Premier League title, though, aren't they?
They're just trying to drum up a bit of sound, didn't they? And I guess that helps the players. And you're going to get the American tint on it, which is probably where the fireworks come from, because they want to make a spectacle and a display. But they're trying. They're trying in the wrong areas, personally, is what I think. If you want to improve the match day experience. It depends what you're after. They said match day experience. So for me, match day experience, you want to make the venue better and the food, the drink, the queues, offer a reason to go there before kick-off. Stuff like that. I've been to a few away games where they do that so much better. We don't really have anything outside the ground. A lot of stadiums these days, the fence in the area is off. So you go through a barrier to get into, especially in the away ends, to get into that outdoor away end area, and they've got bars and stuff outside, and food cars and stuff like that outside, food vans, with options, and you've got a reason to go there early then as well. I don't really think we do a very good job of that. Personally, I think that would help. Don't know what you do during the match. That's what I mean, credit for them trying there. I guess that the easy argument is, play better, do better on the pitch. But as I said last week, people calling out when we had 4 wins in, what was it, the first 11 games? Half the league was in the same boat as us. So
Yeah.
does that mean half the league needs to play better and half the league needs to sack their manager?
Yeah,
Or is it just a competitive league?
I mean, even now though, like talk about how tight it is. I mean, Leeds are on 25 points in third, and then Coventry are on 15 points in 20th. There's 10 points between third
Yeah.
and 20th after 14 games. You could limit that more, and say Cardiff are in 6th on 23, and Millwall are on 17 and 18th. There's 2 wins between 6th and 18th.
Well, 5th, because West Brom are on 23 and 5th.
Yeah, 23, yeah.
I said last week in the podcast that I thought Leeds and Southampton might start to pull away. So you'll have Leicester, Ipswich, Leeds, Southampton, and then everyone else might be playing for 5th and 6th in the playoffs, and that could go down as far as, I don't even know, like what, Millwall in 18th there and 17.
I'd say even lower, honestly. Like,
yeah,
for me, Plymouth could kick on. Coventry have not got going. They've spent what, I want to say 8 mil on,
but they could
5 mil on Ellis Sims. Neither of them can
yeah,
kick a goal at the minute.
The team that gets it right at the right stage of the season and goes on that run that we had at the end of last year. Maybe we started that run 1 match earlier. We were in the picture.
Yeah,
you know,
we said this a few times over the last few
yeah.
years.
So you get that run, but we were like closer to relegation when that run started. So just highlights how it can all change so quickly. The team that gets the right run, the good momentum at the correct time, can just shoot up the table. It's anyone's game. We're only 14 games in. That table could be flipped upside down in that midfield by the time the playoffs come.
In the midfield, yeah. I mean, what I would say is that bottom 4 for me, they're nailed on as the bottom 4. There's so much. Huddersfield, keep in mind, they got off to a good start when they had Warnock. They've been terrible since. For me, that bottom 4 is so much worse than the rest of the league.
I'd even say, you say bottom 4.
Huddersfield down is what I'm saying.
But I don't know which one of the other 3 can improve to even.
Well, Queen's Park Rangers just switched manager.
Yeah, but they've gone for someone who's never managed in the Championship from abroad.
I never buy the thing of they're international, it don't work. Because for me, you can have somebody who's managed here before and they come in and like Darren Moore has managed.
I guess you could look at Cardiff's manager as well. To be fair,
yeah, Darren Moore has managed here before. I know he's gone to Huddersfield and they've been, below average, is put it nicely by the sounds of it.
Regardless, bottom 3, bottom 4, I do think you're right in that that's their own little battle now.
Yeah.
I can't see Coventry getting dragged into it.
They've got too much quality in that squad for me. They're going to go on a run at some point.
Yeah.
Whether that's imminently, I don't know. But
Plymouth, we beat them, of course, but it wasn't an easy match for us by any stretch. And they've had a lot of plaudits, even though they maybe haven't got all the points to show for it. They smashed Norwich. Norwich are on a hell of a bad run at the moment.
Yeah,
they're someone that could change it round, and
they're one of the ones I predicted to be in that region of the table, 18th, 19th, and I got a lot of stick for that. But look, what's that? 4 losses and a draw from the last 5.
Yeah, bad form.
Really poor the end of last season. Nothing really changed over the summer for me.
They're not the yo-yo club they have been of late, that's for sure.
The Darren Webber is leaving Norwich.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. He was getting all plaudits just a couple of years ago when they were in the Premier League for how to run a football club, but the fans have just turned them down. They talk about lack of investment for us, the amount of money that's come into that football club, because they're I want to say fan-owned in one way or another, Norwich. The money hasn't really been spent that they brought in.
Well, they've always been criticised for being happy to take the parachutes every other year, and they don't really invest to stay up, but they know when they go back down, they got a squad to go back up. There's been the kind of narrative around them, so they're lapping up all this money. At some point, it's gone wrong.
Yeah, clearly.
Watford again, they beat us, of course, but they shouldn't be where they are. They're still a parachute payment club. They brought forward their parachute payments by loan or whatever. They did something where they basically They took out loans against their future parachute payments basically this year, all or bust, and it didn't work. So now they're paying the price of it, which is why they've had a bad recruitment. They haven't really got anything. They've sold a lot of their players, and yeah, they're not looking very good at the moment. And you can say they're still a parachute club, but they are struggling because they went all or bust, and they went bust really.
I just worry with them. Do they have the personnel to play the way their manager wants them to? I don't know if they do. Like, I know they beat us, but I didn't know what they were. If that makes any sense.
No, and
We were
the
like
lads
at
I
the
spoke
start.
to said the same. They're not enjoying life for the moment. They were surprised they beat us. They hands down thought, they were convinced we were gonna roll them over. So I knew the writing was on the wall as soon as I spoke to them. I was like, you're saying all this, like, you know what's going to happen. But they were adamant they were going to win that game. I think, and I said this the other day as well, but for me, all the teams in this midfield, including us, I think we're all the same level, and it just comes down to who can put a run of form together. There's so many teams at the same level here. You've got teams that are cut above that are clearly running away with it. And in that midfield, I don't think I've ever seen it so competitive.
It is early days. Be interested to see what it's like after Christmas.
Yeah.
Some will drop off probably. Birmingham won for me now. Terrible decision getting rid of Eustace. Rooney's come in. Already the fans have turned to him after like 3 games.
That was awful though.
Crazy decision. Absolutely crazy.
But to highlight what I'm saying, and to end that point really, Middlesbrough, they shot up from relegation to basically get into the playoffs, got there, and then lost to Stoke, who haven't necessarily had a good season themselves, but have now come into a bit of form. Stoke have. So it just can turn so quick.
Yeah,
exactly. So quick.
It's exciting though. I feel like you said, I think the top 3 will be the top 3 probably in that order. Like Leeds, I think they could catch Ipswich. Leicester are gone already. I don't see how anybody catches them. Southampton, I think, do have the possibility to drop down. I don't think they're nailed on to be fourth.
No, they're not nailed on. I think the playing personnel should be where they are.
Yeah.
Whether they can avoid the mistakes that they have been making earlier this season for the rest of the season, and knowing Russell Martin as we do, if he gets a bad run, you can get a bad run. So,
because I've said all along, on paper they've got the best starting 11 in the league, Southampton, even above Leicester for me. But obviously they had such a bad run at the start, and Leicester, it's weird watching them because they didn't look like they clicked against us, and they still could have scored like 5. It was like, yeah, they're only
he's bringing a lot of Man City traits with him to Leicester, I think.
Yeah,
our manager is, with the constant rotation being one of them, but it's working. They keep managing to find a win, because I've said they're not blowing teams away. 3-1 against us, but we say we give them a hard game.
Yeah, it could have been more.
And then,
but yeah,
1-0 against Sunderland, 2-1 against QPR. And QPR are abysmal.
Yeah, it's a weird.
But they're just getting the wins. They're just getting the job done.
Well, they're on track or something stupid like 127 points, which would obliterate the record for the league. And Ipswich are on 34. If it were not for Leicester, they'd have the highest points total at this point in the championship season. That's what's bizarre.
So they both broke the record, basically, but Ipswich won't technically break it because somebody else broke it better.
Yeah.
And that's nuts to think about.
Like Leeds on 25. They are 14 points off top spot on a normal championship season. They'd 14 points off top spot in third, but in a normal championship season, they'd probably be like within 3 or 4, you'd imagine. It's just crazy, really.
Yeah, nuts. Okay, the last thing we want to touch on, and we're not going to spend long on this because I know it's running on, but there is big news that happened today, and that is Swansea City appointing, and I don't know how to say his name, so you can correct me if you want, but Ken Good.
I'm going to go
pick
Good.
One of them.
Good. We'll go with that for now.
It's American, isn't it? So
yeah,
that sounds American. Ken Good as Chief of Staff and Head of Strategy. So I don't know what that means.
No,
do you know what that means?
I'm not going to pretend. I'm not. I'm going to pile on a guy who I literally don't know. He could be lovely. He could do a wonderful job for us. It sounds like a made-up role, doesn't it? Chief of Staff and Head of Strategy. Like, have you ever actually heard of that job role?
He's been here for some time, apparently, because he's moved all his family here, and Andy Coleman saying he's doing a decent job and settled in well.
Should say the link here is Washington, D.C. again. Worked on the business side of Washington Commanders, which is an NFL team, more probably commonly known as the Redskins, but they obviously can't be called that anymore. Yeah, well, I don't think we'll ever truly see what his impact is or not, and that's not because he isn't having an impact. It's like similar to if you go back to Chris Perlman when he was COO. I still have no idea if what he did was good or not, because it's behind the scenes stuff, isn't it? It's the business side of it. You never see what people do.
And even if, like, he could be the guy that brought the fireworks in, but we just won't know.
And if he is, well, thanks, because I enjoyed myself anyway.
How many fireworks were there? I'm sure Lee said it was like 5.
Yeah, I think it was like 5 or 6. They were bigger than what I thought they were going to be, put it that way. I was expecting, like, Kev Johns coming out with a couple of sparklers. I was expecting the away end.
A big stick with a Catherine wheel on the top of it. Anyway, let's call it there, because it's been a bit of a long one, and we kind of rambled on for an hour and a half, but hopefully the ramblings have been enjoyable and we can hear all your thoughts in the comments. Looking forward to another home match against Sunderland this weekend. I'm actually off work next weekend, and I was tempted by going up to Ipswich, but a bit of a long drive for a tricky match. I know. I'll see. I'll decide next week. But thanks for joining me again, Ben.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll have you back again soon, I'm sure. But yeah, I'll leave a like as always. Don't forget to subscribe, and we shall catch you all in the next one. So thanks for watching.